not a very mystical or natural location. And therefore, I recommend that when you get a deck, you bring it to an unusual natural setting, one ideally with some kind of motion and uniqueness to it. You'll see this deck was brought to Sulphur Springs. That's not the name of it, but sulfur bubbling up. It smelled terrible, and the water was boiling. And that very much I associate with the beginning of life, the agitation that comes when life springs forth. And so that's sort of the setting of the tone. And you can pull a card there just to get a sense of what your relationship is with respect to the tumult that is entering the world of space and time. You can say that happens at birth. I suggest to you that it's happening between every moment. And that is to say, as the Buddhists reported, the world is being created and destroyed over and over again, over and over again. Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva. Call, trial, return. Spring, summer, fall. Dawn, day, dusk. It goes on and on. We see this cycle everywhere. We enter this world and we may feel like we had to push our way in, right? Especially if you identify as the sperm, that yang energy, you pushed your way in. You made a space for yourself. And then you pushed your way out of wherever you were, that bardo, that in between, the womb. So that's just coming out of the gate. There's this feeling of I had to push my way in here, that there was a chance that I wasn't going to get to exist, or that I was going to be suffocated. I was going to die. I was going to be erased. I was no longer going to be an individual. And this gets mirrored in childhood, typically when mothers are very smothering. And then the child has to break away and individuate, and may spend their whole life trying not to repeat the mistakes of the parents, only to find that they are repeating them, but perhaps from a positive spin, in order to do it better this time, to do it with a greater level of peace and harmony and grace and surrender and humility. And whether we succeed or not may not be determined until our moment of death, when we return to the bardo again, beyond space and time. Eight of Pentacles, and it's a figure doing construction. And Sphere 8 on the Tree of Life has to do with the we space, cultural conformity, negative adaptive child wanting to obey, and there can be a lot of challenges in life, whether you're pushing to Sphere 7, individuality, rebelling, conquering, or conforming. Both are extremely difficult positions, and so we're trying to find Sphere 6 balance. But in any case, with this particular sphere, Sphere 8, and this particular suit of pentacles, it's conformity around, working on conformity around the area of material things. Money could be someone that you're attracted to or wanting or feeling lonely, could have to do with food issues. And so coming into this reality from this moment of the bubbling forth out of the sulphury pits of hell, of bardo, of no boundaries, no direction, no individuality. I'm not calling it hell, I'm just saying it smelled like hell. But from those depths of the earth, from those depths of chaos, bubbling forth, the work during the lifetime, or at least in the current phase, is probably around, if the tarot card is to be read correctly, and not just random and not misinterpreted, is to be read as, here is the energy of trying to make peace with Sphere 8, with cultural conformity. Taken at a bubbling brook, cold water, but falling into a pit. As soon as I saw it, I said, that reminds me of death. That reminds me of the return to the bardo. And lo and behold, what card was chosen? The death card. And so that is, I think, the fear that we have when we come forth from the bubbling pit, when we come forth from the depths of the earth, when we come and manifest into the realm of matter, of pentacles, and we're dealing with either Sphere 7 or Sphere 8, the reaction to the fear of the infinite, the fear of boundarylessness, the fear of losing direction, the fear of non-individuality, the fear of the bardo, the fear of Sphere 1. And so right there, this deck is shuffled in a very auspicious way. It is the site of a very large forest fire and burned out trees, but life spreading up around it. And we can look at forest fires as bad or tragic, but they have a purpose. The soil gets replenished. And if there weren't forest fires, then the soil wouldn't be replenished. Part of the necessary system. But we mourn it. We can mourn it even if we understand that it's necessary, that it's compassion. And so the card that comes up, even though the deck has been shuffled three times, is the same. The Eight of Pentacles. And now we're looking at a peak that is shrouded in clouds. And the deck will be shuffled again. And, you know, when you're in these situations, you look at what the meaning is for you. This is a confusion about the highest good, beautiful, and true, the higher purpose, the paradox of being one with God and trying to be in communion with God. The confusion that is this world that doesn't tell us how to be, or the ways it tells us how to be don't seem possible or rational or reasonable. And the reaching the summit when it's full of clouds feels scary and foreboding and frankly impossible. And there's a picture in the foreground of a rock fall, warning sign. And I think that's also part of this, is this fear that there's too much at the base of the mountain, too much rubble, too much danger, too many pitfalls, that the trauma from childhood, etc., is so great that how can we ever possibly reach the summit? And do we even want to reach the summit? It's like you can't even see what's up there, so you wouldn't be able to see the sun. And so that's the kind of ambivalence I think we have on the spiritual path. And so the card that comes up in relationship to this particular image of the cloud engulfing the mountain is the Hierophant. The Hierophant. So location number 1 was the sulfur pit. Location number 2 was the water going into the abyss, which may remind you of the I Ching. And the third location was a forest fire. The fourth location, I'm going to call it a grotto. It's a secluded area covered by trees where people can't see you. It's somewhere that you might go if you needed to pee and the lines are too long for the porta potty, or you might do something more illicit, something that you wouldn't want other people to see. It might be a place for rituals, it might be a place for arcane. It also represents secrets, things you don't want people to know. Could be lying about your age, could be not telling people of your interest in the tarot, could be pretending you agree with someone when you don't. It's the knight in shining armor. We're covering ourselves with metal to serve the king, to serve the society. We're putting a shield because we are feeling defended, and yet we're holding the cup in front of us. The cup has two meanings here, in my opinion. One is our emotions. We're trying to be led by our emotions, and it may be difficult if we're trying to conform to the society, and if we don't feel safe to leave the grotto and share how we feel, reveal our truth, our actual age, our interest in the tarot, whatever it happens to be. But also the Holy Grail, that desire to be led by some purpose. And if we can't see the top of the mountain because it's shrouded in clouds, then we are looking to be led by our emotions, for better or not. But if we can understand our emotions, we may get more wisdom about what is the best goal to have. And this comes with somatic descent and getting in touch with the body. Location 1, sulfur pit. Location 2, water going into the abyss. Location 3, burned out forest fire with new life around it. Location 4, mountain shrouded in cloud. Location 5, we are in the grotto. You can look at the fourth one, seeking the religious or legal systems to point you to right makes right. Because there's destruction. Third chakra and red in spiral dynamics, the fires destroy things, and so we want right makes right instead of might makes right. And so we try to find what's at the top of the mountain, but we just can't figure out what is the highest good, beautiful, and true. And that leads us into the grotto, where we want to have secrets and lie because we just don't feel accepted, or we don't feel we'll be accepted, or we know we won't be accepted. So that relates to the fifth chakra and trying to reveal truth, trying to speak truth, but not being always able to do it. When you go into the realm of secrets, it may be helpful to leave some kind of anchor or some kind of tribute, some kind of severance. You know, there is a difficulty at the start in moving through life, particularly if we can't accept confusion. And those of us who are interested in the tarot and I Ching, we're not really that comfortable with confusion because we're turning to these systems in order to find some clue or hint as what's at the top of the mountain, how to get to the top of the mountain, what things to do, what's best to do. And we are trying to gather support for our decisions, or, you know, there's a real beauty in wanting to make decisions that are going to decrease the amount of suffering and that are aligned with the higher good, beautiful, and true. And if you're a rational person, you have to admit you don't know if the cards are random. You know, I've done, and I Ching, I've done readings for many, many readings, and almost every single time, maybe 2 or 3 times not clear, but every other time it felt clear. I could be inventing. I'm perfectly willing to admit that I'm inventing this interpretation, but they seem very spot on and not things I would have thought of. In any case, it's a useful activity, so from that perspective, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. And I think that's really interesting with Hexagram 3, sprouting and gathering support, is this idea of, yes, we want to know what's true, we want to be accurate, but ultimately what's more important is to be useful. The mind will serve up thoughts about what is true and not true, and then you will try to figure out, well, which is true, which is not true. My mind is split. My negative adaptive child Sphere 8 wants one thing, and my negative free child, Sphere 7, wants something else. And so, in the end, beginner's mind is the place to go. And even holding that mindset with the I Ching and the Tarot and your dreams and goals and objectives and actions and review of past actions, beginner's mind, compassion, ICBM, intelligence, compassion, beginner's mind. These, for me, are our watchwords. With beginner's mind, you don't need to have some kind of narrative or story that makes it all okay or that assumes that it's not okay. Cold. But can you be shivering and cold while you're accessing emotions? And I think there's a particular concern about, especially with Sphere 8, about being judged by other people or excluded, or trying to figure out how to fit in, or trying to find the courage to not fit in, to not marry, or to not join a group, or to not rally people to your cause.